Good morning, Michigan. Good morning, and welcome to all the Michigan companies, Michigan exporters, trade and business exports. And thank you for joining us on this webinar today on this very cold and gloomy day, as it is, at least in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So thank you for joining us. Hopefully this webinar finds you warm and indoors today. And today we're going to be focusing on some digital tools to help you grow your export sales, brand, and business. So to get right into it, let's start by introducing a little bit about ourselves. And on the call today and to be presenting, we're going to be starting with Natalie Sandborn, who is with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and her role as the manager for international trade operations, and is also the program director for Michigan STEP. For Natalie, she's responsible for managing the operations, the activities, and specific operation functions to support the International Trade Program. This involves monitoring the performance of the International Trade Program, overseeing some contracts, grants, marketing, and events. And she's also the primary contract administrator of the SBA. So today she's going to be speaking a little bit more on the STEP program, which is a state trade expansion program, and is responsible for the development of implementation and monitoring and reporting the grant progress and activity for federal, state, and local partners. So thank you very much, Natalie. We're going to be passing it on to you in just a moment here. And as from the IBT side, just want to say a little word on my colleague, Susanna Hardy. Thank you for joining. She is the Chief Content Officer for IBT Online and is in charge of all the content related to our projects and our webinars here. And of course, myself, my name is Andrew Lawler with IBT Online. I'm one of the business development managers working with Michigan companies and helping you grow your export sales, brand, and business. Personally, I'm located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so very glad to be here and be representing Michigan for this webinar. Just want to briefly discuss a little introduction on IBT Online before we get into our agenda and the regular program. IBT Online has been around for quite a long time. We've been around for about 18 years. We build programs to help companies and exporters grow their export sales, brand, and business. We are a private company with a U.S. headquarters, and we're 100% focused on building, hosting, and managing online tools for our clients to help them grow their business. We're very proud to have received the President's E Award very recently. This is the highest recognition that any U.S. company can receive for making the significant contribution to the expansion of U.S. exports. Again, very proud to have received that for the year of 2020. Just received that just a couple months ago, and excited to see what we can do with other U.S. exports in the future. And to go on to the next slide, we're just going to touch a little bit on today's agenda. With the first section, we're going to be passing over to Natalie, and she's going to be speaking more on the MEDC and some resources for Michigan businesses. We'll pass it back to myself, and I'll speak a little on how or why Michigan exporters need localized websites. Susanna is going to be covering website localization and e-commerce for Michigan exporters, and I will be covering the online marketing for Michigan exporters. And finally, we're going to be wrapping it all up today, hopefully without extending over the hour allocated time, with a bit of Q&A and answering any of your questions. So with that being said, please, throughout this webinar, please be using the chat box or questions, and we'll be making sure to allocate some questions throughout the webinar if necessary, and answer them at the very end as well. And to start things off, I'm going to pass it over to Natalie to speak more on the MEDC and the resources for Michigan businesses.
Awesome. Thanks so much for kicking us off today, Andrew. And welcome, everyone. As Andrew mentioned, I'm Natalie Sandborn, and I am the Manager of Operations for the International Trade Team at MEDC, and I am your resident STEP guru. So for those of you that don't know or may not be familiar with STEP, it is our state trade expansion program. It is a reimbursement grant program that can help offset the costs of eligible export activities, including things like trade show participation fees, and that's for both in-person and virtual trade shows, participation in export training workshops, digital marketing, translation expenses, web design, localization, SEO optimization, and e-commerce platform, which is of course why we're all here today, and several other eligible activities. Reimbursement is at 75% up to $15,000 annually, and that's actual costs. Applications can easily be submitted online through our MEDC project portal. And if you don't have access to our project portal currently, we can help get you access via our international trade managers. So that's enough about STEP for now, because I could really talk about it all day, because it is my passion. First and foremost, I'd like to express how much I appreciate you all taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today and to learn what I think is an increasingly relevant program offered through our international trade program and our partners at IBT Online. In what we are now calling the new normal, it is really critical that you think globally and position your company to benefit from the changes that are taking place in how international sales are being facilitated. So while like in-country sales trips and visits may be coming to a grinding halt, keeping your company highly visible to your target audiences is possible through the Michigan Online Global Program. I think it's safe to say that we've all been affected by what's been taking place around the globe for the past nearly 12 months now. Business closures, being mandated to work from home, the social distancing. There are literally countless ways that our lives have been disrupted due to this global pandemic. It's in times like these that we really need to take a good look at the tools in our toolbox, so to speak, and make sure that they are the right ones to help maintain and potentially fix or build for the future. As domestic markets have been disrupted, many of you may be experiencing declines in sales nationally. Our team is here to support entry and growth internationally into new markets that may have a demand for your products and services. With everything going on, both here at home and abroad, I think it's increasingly important to understand the resources that you have at your disposal, especially those that you can access virtually. I'm sure we're all getting sick of Zoom and Teams meetings, but it's kind of how we do things now. But anyway, to help grow your business in this time of continuing change and uncertainty, that's why we're here and we can help. Some of the resources that we have available to you through our program are the ability to explore your company's in-country competitiveness by accessing our international trade centers. We currently have Michigan Trade Center offices located in Canada, Mexico, Europe, the United Arab Emirates, China, and Brazil. We also are fortunate enough to partner with the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence governors and premiers and have access to additional offices in Israel, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, Africa, and South America. Don't worry, there isn't going to be a test. And I don't remember you or expect you to remember all of those locations, but in case you're interested in accessing any of this information, we can provide that to you so you have it at your fingertips. We can also provide you with access to practical small business services like legal trainings, customized market research, and those are through our partnerships with U.S. Commercial Services, Michigan Small Business Development Centers, the SBA, Foster Swift, XM Bank, and of course our partners IBT Online. And what's great about the majority of these services, they are at no cost to you. So our regionally based international trade manager, or as we like to call them, our boots on the ground, are the first step in accessing your expansive network of resources. And they can help you navigate through these times of change by connecting you with the right resources at the right time. Coupled with our international trade managers to provide assistance with all your exporting needs are our regional export network partners. And those are Networks Northwest in Northern and Upper Michigan. We partner with Grand Valley State University, the Van Andel Global Trade Center in West Michigan. Michigan State University's Global Business Center services Central Michigan and kind of the thumb. And then finally, Automation Alley, which covers Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties. So in closing, I'd just like to say thank you all again for taking time to be with us today. I really can't stress enough that we have the tools and the resources to help you succeed and go further. At the conclusion of the presentation today, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding any of our services and resources that are available to you through the International Trade Center. So with that, I'll give it back to Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Natalie. And that was such a great presentation and for the resources that MEDC provides. Of course, any of the international trade managers here listed, you're more than welcome to reach out to, or if you just want to laugh and want to talk about the STEP program, Natalie is also a great resource for both of those. So yeah, thank you again. And I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of questions at the end in terms of the STEP program and how it's related to some of these Michigan Online Global programs.
Andrew, may I interrupt you for a moment, though,
yeah.
if I can? Just while we're here, we'll save some questions to the end. But Natalie, there's a couple of questions that have come in that are really fast questions that I think would be interesting. And actually, there's two that are asked. One is from a service company saying, are these STEP grants available also for service companies, or are they just for the manufacturing?
Yes, service companies as well, as long as you are providing a service that can be exported and you qualify as a small business, yes, STEP is for you as well.
Great. There's another question just is can you apply for STEP like every year, multiple times?
Yes, and that's what we prefer. So every activity, as we call it, is an individual STEP grant. So a lot of companies decide that they want to spend all their money on one activity, say one trade show, and that $15,000 goes to one application. But we have several companies throughout the state that submit maybe 4 or 5 applications throughout the year to do small, sales trips to different markets. So yes, whatever works best for your company is. We are very flexible.
Okay, just one last question. We're going to detail this more later on in the presentation, but just one last question is the STEP grant available for all the aspects of the online, like build, marketing?
Yes. As far as web development, yes. Social media marketing, so that's like the Facebook advertising, Google advertising, and then any of the IBT programs, so the development for multiple markets, search engine optimization, localization, yes. A little asterisk caveat to that is that it's a $10,000 max annual cap for web development and $6,000 annual cap for marketing and social media.
Okay, fantastic. I tell you what, why don't we just ask everybody? I'm going to launch a quick poll. We just ask, of the services provided by the MEDC so far, have you already done them with the MEDC? If so, which were some of the ones that you thought were most interesting up till now? I mean, I have not included the websites such, but have you already done the market research or training? Training seems to be getting a lot of good hits there, by the way, Natalie. So that's nice, and as does market research. And I think that people are beginning to look at your virtual trade shows. So fantastic. So I didn't include the online and the website build on that poll, but thank you very much for replying so nicely. And I can tell you, Natalie, there's a lot of appreciation in there. Looks like I'd say 70% are saying yes to market research, for example. So some big numbers. Thank you very much for participating on that. And I'm going to now hand back to Andrew to talk about why Michigan exporters need localized websites.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Susanna. And so just to continue on, yeah, just going to talk a little bit more about why and why there's a need for Michigan exporters to use and utilize localized websites. And so just to start with the actual why, I mean, we talk with many businesses on a daily basis and mostly in Michigan in my case, and we talk a lot about their business priorities today and how they've been able to, exceed their domestic sales or international sales. And some of the main focuses that they have is, one, looking after their employees, 2, managing their costs, their cash flow, 3, maintaining supply chains and existing partnerships. And 4 is going to be generating sales, exports in their business. And that's going to be the main focus and main priority of today. And really the biggest objective that we hear time and time again that help that online tools help with generating sales, exports, and their business. Now, to first talk about how the world is online, we can show a little bit of a chart here and how the online tools can be effective in this online world. As of October 2020, there is over 4.6 billion people in the globe that are on the internet, that are online every day, which is about 60% of the world's population. When you analyze the number of people online and their behavior, I want to draw your attention to the average time spent. And the average time spent online is almost 7 hours per day that people are using the internet online, using their phones, using their computers in front of a screen. And so if there's one takeaway from this slide, is that that across the globe, no matter where you're at, whether you're in the US, you're in China, you're in Russia, anywhere in your market, your customers, your prospects, your leads, your future distributors, your future employees, your suppliers, everyone in their business interacts with with the internet and is online. And most of their days that they're spending are going to be online on social media, on different websites, and the numbers are continuing to grow. And speaking of continuing to grow, there's already over 300 million people, which is just a few million people under the U.S. population that just went online last year. So increasingly, 300 million year on year is what we're seeing. And to increase that, and active social media users have also been pretty impressive. Over 450 million people became an active social media user since October 2019 to October 2020 of last year. So quite a big growth. And so finally, why do Michigan exporters need localized websites? And it's because the world is online. Your clients, your prospects, your future employees, your suppliers, they're going to be searching online in their own local environment. Trying to find your own normal and trying to build your own international online presence is going to be the best way to prepare for the new online normal. There are effective online business development tools that are trying to help your business be found, be understood, and be easy to do business with. And as we talk about some of the core online business development tools that are here to help your business out, we have 2 different core tools that we will be speaking about today. The first one being a website, whether that's a B2B, that's a B2C, that's building an e-commerce website, a transactional website for your clients, your prospects, your leads. And on the other side, it's going to be in online marketing. And so that could be in the search engine marketing, that could be in social media marketing. And for both to work, they're really 2 interrelated pieces in terms of getting these business development tools to boost your international online presence. So you still really need you still need a really good core website, but also the SEO is there to really supplement that. So in practice, this is what it could look like. Your US domestic market website can have its own communication policies surrounding it, using SEO and social media to draw in clients from your prospects into the US website. And for your international clients and prospects, you need a pretty similar online environment, or what we call digital real estate. So let's say that you're targeting the French market and also the Brazilian market, then in that case, you would also need a dedicated and localized website that acts as a springboard or a sounding board for your communications. It can all feed back to your US website, and certainly it could all be linked together. Also, just one thing that is very important is brand consistency. Brand consistency is extremely important when it comes to building your French or your Brazilian websites and making sure that they will have the same look and the same feel as the US website. But the only difference is that it's going to be localized for those markets. And then and only then can your online communication be effective in those markets. So as a takeaway, make sure that you have localized websites first, and then the online marketing, so the website can act as a real estate with clear goals for your buyer journey mapping, metrics, and all the other essentials that we'll be talking about. And as to talk about a little bit of the online global programs, they're ultimately here to make the internet work for you globally. We have a dedicated webpage for Michigan exporters, and they have a lot of different motivations for companies to get international websites. So here we've listed some of the most common ones that we hear on a day-to-day basis. And for example, that could be lead generation, brand awareness, reaching new markets, growing your trust, your credibility with some of these clients or prospects, growing international sales, your ROI at the end of the day. To summarize, I mean, the localized websites and localized online marketing means giving a local user experience to your prospects, to your clients. Localized websites are also a great way to build and support your distributor network, grow your brand awareness, and ultimately control the online presence and success that your business has. And so with the next few slides, I'm going to be passing it over to Susanna to speak a little bit more in depth on website localization and also e-commerce for Michigan exporters.
Thanks, Andrew. Really great to be here and talking with Michigan companies today. And I understand it's really cold. So it's nice to be indoors, as Andrew said, and just talk about more online tools. So let's talk first about website localization. What is it? Well, we're regularly asked, why can't I just use my Michigan website? You know, let's say I've got I invested a lot of money in this Michigan website, got a great Michigan website, and I know that I can get more Mexican clients or more Japanese clients. Why can't I stick some Japanese pages on my existing website? You know, wouldn't that work? It doesn't work. And why is that? It's because of the way search engines work. Here I've taken the example of Google, largest search engine in the world, but all search engines work like this way. YouTube is a search engine, works the same way. Google Argentina or Google Japan is different from Google US. Google Canada is different from Google US. Each time Google is looking at where is it for the searcher? What's important for the searcher? Not necessarily the person who wants to be found, but it's the searcher who counts for the search engine. So they're going to say, well, are you, Michigan website, are you relevant for this person looking for this thing in Japan? Maybe not. You're not in Japanese. You're not hosted locally. You don't have the right keywords. You don't probably have the right compliance. All those criteria that tick the boxes for the Google algorithm to rank you and make you relevant for that search. So that's why I like to say, you know, think of Google as in fact 192 different Googles, because that's how many places there are. If I can get my mouse to work, I would change the slides. Let's see if I can do it this way. Yes. One of the important things as well about anything online is your understanding of your buyer persona. And is your buyer persona, international buyer persona, different from your domestic buyer persona? And if so, how? In what way is it different? So I've listed some things here up on the slide. You know, is your international buyer persona different from your domestic? In which case, how? How does your international buyer persona find you? How do they interact with you? How do they engage with you? These are all the kind of things that you have to figure out to have a successful buyer's journey. So I want to give you an example here of a company. This is L'Oreal, and this is back from about sort of May 2020 when there was a lot of COVID, and it was L'Oreal really wanted to show its U.S. base that they cared for. So that was their website. In about May 2020, they wanted to say that they're supporting their stylists and their salon partners during this COVID time and so on. So that was important to them. And but if you took a look at the exact same time of L'Oreal in Australia, you can tell that it's the same L'Oreal, same brand, same font, same colors, and so on. But the image is a bit different because at the time Australia had just gone through those horrific wildfires, and so people were really concerned about the climate. So that was top of mind. And that the Australian buyer persona was more inclined to click with that as an image than the COVID example. But if you looked again at Brazil at exactly the same time, L'Oreal had a different feel to it again. Again, same sort of image, same brand consistency that Andrew was talking about, just a tweak of an image to show that their Brazilian buyer persona, it was important to them. And here, L'Oreal is saying, this is something we don't usually do. We don't usually do hand sanitizer, but now we care about you. We're doing these hand sanitizers for you. So in that sense, each time brand consistency mixed with an awareness of the international buyer persona for those regional markets. And that's what's going to determine your localized website. So one of the other things that we talked about, what makes a localized website is your keywords and the words you're using, the content you're using. So here I've taken an example of a very frequently used word, the word car in Spanish. Now, if you are targeting the Spanish market in Spain, and one of your keywords, one of your main words that you have is car, and if you're using Mexican Spanish and you're using the word auto rather than coche, 9% of people in Spain search using the word auto. 91% use the word coche. So again, same Google, same language, different keyword, and therefore a different buyer persona stretch on it and a different ad and different marketing for the ad campaigns. So here's another example. I have a dog at home. My dog is going to bark soon, and you will hear her. She always barks in webinars. It's very embarrassing. I happen to be in the UK at the moment. And so I go to my Google, which is google.co.uk, and I look squeakless dog toys for my dog. And I get timeforpaws.co.uk, barksandbunnies.co.uk. I even get amazon.co.uk. Now, Andrew, sitting in Grand Rapids, gets chewy.com, freedompoolharness.com, and amazon.com. Same Google, same search engine, Google, same language, English, same search request, different results, because chewy.com is not relevant for me. Barks and bunnies is not relevant for Andrew. So that's how search engines work, as it were. So if I were to summarize what is website localization on a single screen, I've listed here on the right-hand side the 10 criteria that we use to determine a localized website. You can see that language is one criterion out of 10. So, regulatory requirements, optimal hosting, domain names, all those things are just as important as the language. And it has to tick a lot of different boxes for Google. It's a competitive world out there online. Google does, if you put a search thing in, Google does about 2 billion in the first 2 seconds of triage. And you've got to make sure that you're hitting the right algorithm things for it in your market that you want to attract for your buyer personas to find you in your international markets. One kind of interesting way is to look at it the other way around and say, okay, is my website good locally? And one way you could look at that is to say, where are people coming from? This is a report of an Australian website that we built for our company, and we wanted to see if it was, relevant for Australia. Google obviously thinks it's extremely relevant for Australia, and if we take Australia plus New Zealand, we get like 95% of the visitors coming to this website are from Australia and New Zealand. It's almost irrelevant for other English-speaking countries. So it is a highly relevant website for Australia. So that's I think one way of looking at it. If we look at now what Michigan Online Global Programs and what the MEDC has got resources for you, we designed 2 sort of options for the websites, option A and option B. And option A is basically 2 markets. And anywhere in the world, you can have China and Germany, Saudi Arabia and Mexico, whatever it is you want. And for that, we're going to build you 2 country-specific, totally localized, optimized, search engine optimized, functioning websites in those markets. There's a predefined scope to it, so they're not the biggest, but they're very high-functioning websites. And I'm going to give you an example of that in a second. Option B is simply, okay, I want this one, but I want them slightly different. So it's anything, it's more customized. And that could be, for example, rebuild my website, redesign my website, do some plugins with my CRM integrations, make it much larger than that, and so on. So basically, the option B is something that's a bit more customized, and particularly it's rebuilding websites that we do quite a bit. To give you an example of the option A, armor protective packaging, you know, there's a blog that we've written about him, and Dave Yancho, who's his official title is head honcho. He's the vice president and co-owner of Armor Protective Packaging. He you know, was very clear that right from the start he needed to have these websites, especially given COVID. So early on last year, he was like, right, I need to have them as fast as possible up there. There's simply no way that a manufacturing company like ourselves can visit our prospective clients at the moment. We're not able to get out there and go and see them. We need to have tools in our toolbox that allow us to reach our clients, talk to our clients, and so on. So these are really about generating leads and delighting our clients. And the first two worked out so well. He went, oh, give me another one, and applied for that. If you want to hear more on that, there's a video with him talking, going through his personal experience of the online global program in Michigan, and you can get that on our website or through his through that link that I've just sent you. I'm going to give everybody another poll. I just wanted to ask you know, you guys, is anybody interested in the option A or option B, the website localization program in Michigan? And if you are, you know, we would be happy to reach out to you. If you're still thinking about it, that's fine. But if you want to have more information about it, if you'd like to have a discussion about it or anything like that, please let us know. As I said, we have a lot of case studies and historics that we can go through as well. I'm going to close that poll now. Thank you very, very much. Very enthusiastic response to that. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. We will be circling back to you with more information about the program. Then I want to zip through and talk a little bit about e-commerce. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to go a bit quickly on this. But e-commerce for Michigan exporters is pretty important too. When you think about e-commerce, very often one only thinks about like B2C. It's like, oh, that's my 12-year-old daughter going online shopping for clothes. No, no, manufacturers need e-commerce too. In fact, if you look at the numbers, B2B is about 3.5 times the size of B2C. And it's growing and has grown at a rough estimate of something like 40% growth in 2020. So over the last year. So it is really something that you can't be without anymore. You have to at least be aware of it. What's your view on it? Where are you participating and how? And it's not only about fashion items and teenage kids buying clothes or electronics. So it is absolutely for everybody. And I think one of the things that interests me as well is just seeing, you know, where we're seeing channels for brand research. And a lot of that also is again online and B2B. So, you know, again, this is all about websites, localized websites, and online tools for B2B as well. So e-commerce, I said that the B2B side was much larger than the B2C, but just to give a few numbers, there we go, a few numbers on some of that. The B2C side, I don't have numbers yet for all of 2020, but certainly in 2019, 3.2 trillion. You can see the largest ones there, you know, the US, China, UK ranks high, but all of Europe ranks high too. These numbers are up at least 20% in 2020. E-commerce, B2C e-commerce in the United States, for example, is up 30% this year. Now, there's a lot of different marketplaces that people go to. They would look at Amazon, obviously, that's one choice, but I think it's interesting as well looking at other platforms. Don't only rely on the names you know in Michigan. if you are looking, and if you're in that sector, in those sectors in South America, you may well want to think about Mercado Libre, for example. It's a fabulous platform. So when you are going internationally, there's a lot of choice. You have to choose the right platform for your type of business. Equally, if you're looking at sort of a DIY, looking at your own e-commerce platform, make sure you're choosing the right software underneath that. There's a lot of difference between, a PrestaShop and a Magento or a Shopify. A couple of years ago, Shopify was not really an ideal platform for international companies. They have really shifted and moved their game. And probably the ones we see most and that we build most is probably Shopify and the WooCommerce plugins. And these are very, very effective ways of looking internationally across all markets. You could do a Shopify even in markets that are less friendly, let's say. You could do Shopify's and WooCommerce and even for Chinese sites, no problem. So there is, for Michigan companies, there's also this option E for e-commerce, and that the price of that depends very much on the number of SKUs. But let's say, for example, you have, I think it's sort of 20,000 SKUs. That's a lot of SKUs. That price is about $12,000. So it's very well covered by the STEP grants that Natalie was talking about. So even in terms of e-commerce, you can get yourself a very high functioning e-commerce with payment gateways and secure areas at a very, very good price, and helped out with Natalie and Natalie's program. So there's a company called Vaporpin, part of a larger group, and just as an example of some things. We built them a website first in Brazil, and that was one of the first ones that we did for them in Brazil. I say that, I want to point that out because anyone who's ever done e-commerce in Brazil knows what an absolute pain it is for Brazil. The admin and paperwork is extraordinary. So the website took a tiny bit of time, took 4 months. It's normally more like, took about 6 months. It only takes about 4 months. But then we rolled it out across Latin America and now in Australia, New Zealand, a couple of other places. So again, just examples of sort of e-commerce websites, and then they back it up with some social media as well. So before I pass over to Andrew to talk more about international online, let's ask y'all if you have an interest in option E for e-commerce. If that's of interest for anybody, let us know. We'll be happy to circle back to you and give you any information you want, either about pricing, about step grants, about functionality, and what choices you have. There's a lot of different choices to be made in e-commerce. And again, thank you very, very much for that. That's very interesting. There's a lot of people actually really interested in this. That's very interesting. There's thank you for that. We will circle back to you for that. And I'm going to pass over to close this down. I'm going to pass over to Andrew to talk about online marketing.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Susanna. Yeah, I'll just close this out with the international online marketing programs that are available for Michigan exporters. Again, being conscious of time, so I'm going to try to get through this quickly so we can get through some of the questions that you guys have asked us so far in the presentation. But first, just to talk more about communicating with over the 4.66 billion people around the globe that are now online. And now, with that number, 4.66 billion, there's 4.14 billion of those people that are online using social media. So the vast majority, 99% of them are using mobile phones and accessing social media platforms. The average time spent on social media per day is a big 2.5 hours. I know myself, I set limits on my iPhone, so I don't get to that limit, to that 2.5 hours, but there's many other people, and that's just the average. And that's an awful lot of communicating going on. But what's really interesting here is that for over 43% of the internet users use social media for work purposes as well. All the good news, and just to say that all of this is good news for companies, for exporters, and it means that you know exactly where your clients and your prospects are and what they're doing. just about any time of the day. They're going to be online and they're going to be on social media. So you can use this to your advantage. And online is not only for the typical B2C companies, but it's also for B2B, it's for B2G, it's for everybody. So let's talk a little bit about why you need a social media strategy. And ultimately, it's for expanding your other marketing efforts. It's to provide content that has the chance to be seen by a wide variety of audience. And if it's done correctly, the right audience. And so ultimately, you want to build brand awareness with social media. You have the ability on these platforms to bring your brand content directly to your customers, your partners, your prospects. And now that's where exactly your audience is where they are and where they can see it. Social media is one of the most powerful ways to connect with your audiences. Social media can help attract buyers to your products and services, and also give you the ability to directly have conversations with those individuals at the time and place of the choosing. Social media, it ultimately levels the playing field of businesses of all sizes. If you think about the fact that Click and Curl, which is a 10-person beauty company over in the Midwest, that posts, there's a post of theirs that's right next to Dior, for example, an international powerhouse with $100 million in marketing budget. And so ultimately, it's just crazy when you look at the perspective of, whether you're a small business trying to make it through social media, growing your brand presence internationally, or you're an absolute powerhouse like Dior, for example, and have that widespread communication through the same exact programs. Now to touch on a couple of specific markets, and these two markets very relevant to Michigan exporters, as had through our conversations, Mexico especially. But here's a great example of how different buyer personas interact with social media campaigns. So this is an example from a Facebook campaign. We were promoting the same product, similar imagery, similar message, and although and even though that all that was similar, there's of course the localized content. There's localized and to stay relevant to the local audience within each of these two markets. So if we look at the results of the specific post, for the UK, over 1,200 engagements, and we were super pleased with that. But then when you look at Mexico, we were blown away with over 20,000 engagements. And if we stopped our analysis right there, we can infer that our campaign in Mexico would work better, right? Well, I mean, not necessarily, because if we look at the full buyer's journey, here's where we get the full picture. We get all of the analytics. So you need to know each of your markets, and specifically how they react to the way you look at certain numbers and how you look at these analytics. So for Mexico, for example, we know that the market engages easily. They're incredibly reactive and responsive, unlike the more frosty Britons, the folks over in the UK. But if you look at the actual conversions, there's a more important bit for companies that indicates how many actually went out and bought that and asked for a quote. The numbers are pretty similar between the two. So we know from experience that you need to get those levels of engagement in Mexico to get a good level of conversion, which is sales. And in the UK, less engagement doesn't necessarily mean lower sales. So each market, you need a specific and action plan to take place to take into account the different market specifics. So the next tip that I'm going to show more on social media are about some of the different objectives and different goals and for building your social media strategy. You want to make sure that your social strategy is aligned with your business and your objectives. This is going to be giving you a starting point to decide what you want to achieve and consequently how you're going to monitor this. And with that, some of the metrics that you're going to be focusing on in that strategy. And so for your business goals, you want your social media goals to use SMART method. So what we say is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and also timely. And if we take the social media here as an example, you can see that with a singular platform, let's say Facebook, for this example, you can already tailor your activities to the goals and overall objectives for your business. And as we get through some of these last slides here and also touch on the international online marketing programs that IBT Online has to offer, we do just want to touch on some online marketing best practices that we certainly follow and we encourage you as Michigan exporters, Michigan companies, Michigan partners to follow as well. We have seven points here that are very relevant to creating a localized online marketing presence. And that's number one, having a localized website to act as a local springboard. Number two, knowing your audience, your buyer persona, and your buyer's journey. Number three, setting your goals and your social media strategy. Number four, choosing which platforms are worth your resources. Staying engaged with your audience through number five, and answering all the comments, answering all your mentions. Number six, taking a look at the analytics, some of the reports, continue to learn who your demographic, who your buyer persona is in any of these different markets. And number seven, of course, keep going. Do not stay disencouraged by some of the numbers you see off the bat, and continue to move forward and keep learning. And to finish out my part here, before I pass it over to Susanna, and ultimately we have a quick poll after this, but we want to speak about our international online marketing options, which is option C and option D. We have a couple of programs with IBT Online, and of course, through the help of Natalie Sandborn and MEDC and supporting grants, we offer companies the ability to go global through social media marketing, search engine marketing, and support them with the reporting and analytics necessary to help grow their business and grow their brand awareness internationally. So for example, our option C is for your top 2 markets. It's a very robust program. Please, I do look forward to reaching out to any of you who are interested in this, learning more about your company, and for your top 2 markets, and creating those 2 plans to help support your online presence in those international markets. And before we head into a poll, I just want to say that we have a quick case study here with AMSOIL. So this is a company here in actually across the lake here, across the pond in AMSOIL. So they're in Wisconsin, but they were going online global in Australia and France and India, Latin America, and the UK, and they have plans to extend to other markets. But ultimately for them, their story began through localized websites and then creating localized social media programs and platforms. As you can see in the example, creating different Facebook advertisements, Facebook organic posts to really reach their audiences in these different markets like Australia, France, India, Latin America, and the UK. For them, we have a case study on them and a great video and story and blog where they really talk about some of the benefits behind the programs that we've been able to create for them in terms of increased sales, increased brand recognition, having new relationships with new distributors, and different business growth in all of their target markets.
Thanks, Andrew. I want to launch my quick poll now. I'm getting used to this. So I just wanted to ask if anyone's interested in the option C. That's particularly about online marketing to support their websites and their online presence. And that can be anything from a very light sort of just SEO stuff to big social media and search engine optimization or whatever. Thank you very much. We will be circling back to you. That's very kind. Again, a pretty enthusiastic response, which is lovely to see. Right, I'm just sort of going to close that, I think, now, and then we're going to wrap up. And there's quite a few questions that have come in, so I'm happy to look at those questions too. So let's, basically for us, where we're sitting, sort of, if we can just say summary, really. I guess if there's a summary for us, it's this slide here, just to say the world is online. As Andrew was pointing out, these numbers blow me away, but 4.66 billion of us are spending 7 hours every day online. That's amazing. And over 4 billion are on social media as well, and something like 3 hours a day on social media. So that's good news for Michigan exporters. As Andrew was saying, you know exactly where your prospects are, you know how to reach them. And I guess the other big thing for us is this online global program supported by the MEDC and Natalie and her team with the STEP grants, making it really incredibly affordable, and companies should really take advantage of this. It's a fantastic way of making sure that you are focused on your top line growth and driving your business forward. And as Andrew was saying, those motivators that we list on the right, if you look at them, they're really all about top line growth. They're all about brand awareness and lead generation. It's all about growing my top line. And how can I be found? How can I use my websites? Well, this is a terrific way of doing it. So I'm going to pass now to questions, and we have actually quite a few different types of questions coming in. There's a couple of you have asked a couple of times, so I'm just going to say this for everybody. Yes, you will be getting a recording of this webinar in your inbox. So yes to those questions were asked. Andrew, first question I think is for you and perhaps also for Natalie, I'm not sure, which is how much does the option A cost? What's the budget? It wasn't on the slide. Oops.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a good question, so I can take care of that. And yeah, so the option A was the localized websites program, and that was for your top 2 markets. And that total cost is $12,000. So that's one-time total cost to you. And with that, Natalie, did you want to touch on some of the STEP program that takes away from that total cost?
Sure. So the $12,000 cost, when you submit your reimbursement request, you would actually get $9,000 back for that. So it would end up only costing you $3,000 out of pocket for the option A, which is fantastic.
Okay.
Super, super deal.
Here's one as well, Natalie. I'm not sure if this one is I certainly know what I would reply in terms of the website side. I'm going to throw this at you as well. Some of our products are dangerous goods. They're artists' enamel, I think the types of paints, I guess. Can we use this program to direct those buyers towards our distributors since we can't sell directly to them?
Yes. Like use STEP to connect with your buyers, like in country, and then to connect those.
I can touch on that a little bit as well, and I know that that's a very common objective that we, whenever I'm speaking with a company, sometimes the main objective is not to make the sales yourselves, but to be a supporting and recruiting tool for the distributors you have in some of these in the international markets. And so what we've seen is it being a wonderful tool for them to use, for them to promote, and it has the same brand coherency across the board for not only your company, but their company as well.
Yeah. And I would reinforce that. I think probably, I don't know what percentage, but something like maybe 50% of the websites we build are built with the distributor in mind, saying, this is the tool my distributor keeps asking me for. And this is the tool that my distributor is actually going to be able to use to really explain our products better and get some more traction and lead generation in those markets. So this is something we see frequently. Another question which is come in, which I think I'm going to take, which is, how can I tell if my website is localized? Our website is translated into several languages. Well, if it's just translated and you don't have different domain names or haven't done any of the other work, then all you've got is it's like a multilingual brochure. So people in Michigan who are Spanish speaking will like you if you've got a Spanish speaking, if you've got some Spanish pages on it, or a Japanese person in Michigan might appreciate that. But unless you do all the other work, your Japanese buyer is not going to find it if they're in Japan. There's something, the technical thing called an hreflang, and that's what's actually needs to be adjusted for that. But I can do a sideways conversation about hreflangs for you and reach out if you want. But my guess is if you've just translated, you've just got some Google Translate, or you've got some translated pages, it doesn't actually mean that you've got websites that are relevant for those export markets. They're relevant for foreign speakers in Michigan. One question I have as well coming in, and maybe Andrew, you could have this. If you build the websites, does that mean you own them? No, you own the websites. Andrew, maybe?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. So in terms of when we build the websites for our clients, we're certainly building the websites for yourself, and so you'll have full access and full opportunity to own the website. So websites are in your property. They'll be they'll be taken care of by yourself, although we'll be, we'll have the opportunity to maintain the websites, make sure that they're regularly secure, performing well, optimal in some of these markets, but just to reinforce that they are in your property.
Right. I have a little question also maybe for Natalie and or perhaps both is where do I start? Do I start the application with you, Natalie, or do I call IBT? That's the question.
For a step application,
Yes.
if you are not already, if you have never engaged with our program, I would highly encourage you to go to the Michigan business website, our MEDC home webpage. You can, if you Google Michigan International Trade Program, it'll be the first one to pop up. And then there's a services tab. And then if you scroll down about halfway through the page, there's our international trade program. You click on that and there's a intake form that you'll fill out, and that will come into our lead queue, and we'll put you in touch with one of our international trade managers, or you can access the slide that Susanna had created with our international trade managers on it, and you can reach out to whoever your regional boots on the ground trade manager is directly, and they can help you get started as well. But if you are an existing trade client with the MEDC and you have access to the portal, you can just log into the portal and start a 2021 step application.
Okay, great. Another one has just actually just come in for Andrew, perhaps. Andrew, can I make my localized website into an e-commerce over time?
Yes, the answer is yes, and that's actually quite often the story that many exporters go through, is making first a very educational and resourceful website to make sure that you get the traction of some of the customers abroad, and then transitioning into an e-commerce internationally. And so there's many different ways you can go about it. There's many different plugins. For example, WordPress offers many different opportunities and plugins to then just extend onto that same website. Or there's many other content management systems, as Susanna was talking about, like Shopify or WooCommerce or BigCommerce, for example, that give you the opportunity to really make those two online presences readily available for you.
Okay, I have this. There's just one other last question that's come in. I think we did mention this, but how long does it take to get a website? I have a new product launch in April. I guess, Andrew?
Yeah, no, the website build program takes about 3 months time. So if your product build is in April, and we started now April-ish, yeah, if you were to start now and you were looking to promote this product in April, if you started January, February, March, at the end of March, we would then hope to have those websites live for you.
Okay, sorry, one last one that's just come in. What about domain names? We've had problems buying domain names. Can you help buy domain names?
Yeah, we have plenty of resources along with Natalie and the MEDC team. When it comes to domain names, or when it comes to some of the regulations within each market, we have plenty of expertise on our team as well as on the MEDC that can help you out with these.
Yeah. I would just add on our side, all the websites we build are always online, digitally compliant. So if you have ones for Europe, for example, they will be fully GDPR compliant as well. That's a major non-negotiable with us. Okay, we're drawing to a close. I wanted to thank Natalie so much for being with us here. Natalie and the MEDC team are an incredible resource for Michigan companies. You guys work so hard for your Michigan companies and the exporters, and you can see it in the numbers, the success that you're having. So and I would really encourage Michigan companies to reach out, get a hold of Natalie and ask questions, get involved with it. It's an incredible resource you've got. Leverage it and use it. Andrew, thank you so much for presenting and sharing all that. And I would encourage also Michigan companies, socially distanced, right? You can't actually meet, but anyway, at least you could, I don't know, wave at each other on the other side of Grand Rapids.
Have another team meeting.
Yeah, have another team meeting.
Zoom call.
Yeah. And then most of all, I wanted to thank all of you for attending. I know we're all Zoomed out, we're all webinared out, but thank you for spending your time with us, and we hope you found it useful, enjoyable, thought-provoking, and we do look forward to seeing you online and offline, hopefully soon. Stay safe, everybody. Stay well. Thank you all very, very much indeed. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.